Have you ever had one of those days where you feel like all you're doing is putting on a brave face? You're going about your day and you're going through the motions, but deep down, your mind feels like it's a war zone and it's being bombarded by thought after thought after thought. You just feel mentally exhausted. Believe me, you're not alone, my friend. We've all been there and have played the game of navigating life's challenges while silently struggling with doubts and fears on the inside. Hell, I just experienced it the other day. I had family in town and we were all hanging out. Everyone was talking and everything seemed to be perfect. But out of nowhere, intrusive thoughts came sneaking in. I found myself contemplating things like, wonder how many more visits like this we're going to be able to have. I hope no one passes away soon. How many more deaths are my children going to have to experience? These thoughts really bothered me, and I struggled to let them go. And it honestly just put a cloud over my day and left me feeling like shit and really sad when the evening ended. It was as if my own mind was working against me and sabotaging me in the moment. And this kind of stuff happens to us all the time. Think about it. Your mind is constantly buzzing with thoughts. Some are ordinary and seemingly harmless, while others unexpectedly gain a disruptive power. So if you've ever wondered why these innocent, everyday thoughts take an unexpected turn to becoming distressing, sticky, and downright intrusive, you're in the right place, my friend. By the end of this episode, you'll gain valuable insights into the top ways that we unknowingly exacerbate these intrusive thoughts that throw off the balance of our mental harmony. Now, there are 5 research proven ways that we can turn normal thoughts into distressing intrusive thoughts. And it is imperative that you know these if you really want to make these thoughts go away. The first way that we intensify and worsen our thoughts is by fixating on the controllability of them. So listen, it's natural for humans to want control. And when it comes to our minds, we often fall into the trap of believing that we should have complete command over our thoughts. However, the reality is that thoughts are involuntary, and the more we try to forcefully control them, the more elusive that control becomes. The term we use to describe this in psychology is thought suppression. And the American Psychological Association Dictionary of Psychology defines this as an attempt to control the content of one's mental processes, and specifically to rid oneself of undesired thoughts or images. They also go on to say that, ironically, engaging in thought suppression often only serves to make the unwanted thoughts more intrusive. Now, there's a pretty well known research study that a lot of people reference when talking about thought suppression, and you might find it interesting. It was done back in 1987, and researchers asked participants to verbalize their stream of consciousness for 5 minutes. And during this time, they were told not to think of a white bear. If a white bear entered their thoughts, they were instructed to ring a bell. Now, what do you think happened? People, of course, found it incredibly difficult to not think of the white bear. They found that despite explicit instructions to avoid it, participants thought of a white bear more than once per minute on average. And I'm sure you even had the image of a white bear pop up into your mind at some point while I've been talking about it. But that's not all they found. The researchers then flipped the script. They asked the same group of participants to do the opposite. They wanted them to actively think of a white bear. And interestingly, the participants thought of a white bear even more often than a different group of people who initially went through that first round of the experiment being told to think of a white bear. Essentially, what this showed was a rebound effect, demonstrating that thought suppression during the first 5 minutes caused the white bear to become even more prominent in the participants' minds later on. This study just shows the paradox of thought suppression. The more we try to forcefully push unwanted thoughts out of our mind, the more stubbornly they bounce back, often intensifying their intrusiveness, right? It's kind of like the rubber band effect. The further the stretch, the bigger the snap. And this is where the phrase, what you resist, persists, come into play. It's like holding that beach ball underwater. The more you try to suppress it, the more force it exerts to resurface. And before you know it, you're taking an uppercut to the chin. So, the second way that we intensify our thoughts is by attaching too much importance to them, granting them more power than they deserve. Imagine having a worrisome idea, and instead of seeing it as just a passing thought, you start believing in it and treating it like an undisputed fact. For instance, let's say you have a negative thought about making a mistake. If you attach too much importance to it, you might believe that merely having the thought increases the likelihood of it coming true. This distorted perception significantly amplifies the emotional impact, and it makes the thought more distressing and challenging to manage. Some of us even have a tendency to overestimate the level of potential threat in a given situation. So, during times where negative consequences are possible, you might find that you overinflate the likelihood and severity of the consequences. You might even have an excessive fear of harm and operate by the mindset that everything is dangerous until proven safe. This combination of attaching too much importance to your thoughts and overestimating the threat of your thoughts creates a dynamic where distressing thoughts gain unnecessary power. And recognizing this is key in regaining control over your thinking. Now, another way that we unintentionally amplify distressing thoughts is through having an intolerance of uncertainty. So imagine you're faced with a decision. Perhaps it's something as simple as choosing a restaurant, right? You have friends coming into town and you want to take them out for a night of fun. For most people, this is a routine task. However, with intolerance of uncertainty, this seemingly straightforward decision becomes a mental mind trap. You find yourself overanalyzing every option, reading every review, and seeking out more information than necessary. And this only serves to increase anxiety as you grapple with the fear of making the wrong choice and disappointing your guests. Now, let me throw you another scenario to consider. Imagine you have a work project to complete, and you're unsure how your boss is going to react to the work that you put into it. Instead of proceeding with confidence, you become paralyzed by the need for absolute certainty. Every unanswered question and every potential pitfall becomes a looming threat. And this only worsens if you're someone with perfectionistic tendencies. When you combine this uncertainty with the need for everything to be pristine and perfect, it's like firing gasoline. That fear of the unknown doesn't just stay confined to the decision making process, it extends its reach to other aspects of your life. And it creates a constant sense of unease because remember, fear plus uncertainty equals anxiety. So, what do you do when you feel anxious? You might find yourself engaging in rituals and avoidance behavior in an attempt to bring control and certainty into your life. It might be in the form of double checking emails or engaging in elaborate planning. But here's the issue, these strategies don't eliminate the uncertainty. Instead, they inadvertently amplify the distressing thoughts, creating a loop that's challenging to break. And recognizing these patterns is the first step towards learning to manage your mind more effectively. Now, the fourth way that we magnify the impact of our thoughts is through having an inflated sense of responsibility for them. So consider a scenario where you're planning a surprise birthday party for a friend. An intrusive thought emerges, and you question if the party will live up to their expectations. With an inflated sense of responsibility, you not only worry about the thought itself, but you feel an overwhelming obligation to ensure every detail is perfect. And you take on the impossible task and responsibility of ensuring the happiness of others. Or imagine this, you're at work and in a meeting, and a thought suddenly pops in your head. What if I just punched my boss in the face? Now, for most people, this would be dismissed as an odd and bizarre thought. However, with someone who has an inflated sense of responsibility for their thoughts, this scenario takes a different turn. With this distorted perception, you not only acknowledge the thought, but you also start to believe that you have the power to overcome your own resistance. Despite not wanting to act on this intrusive impulse, there's this unwarranted feeling that you could overcome your own reluctance and make it happen. This just shows how having an inflated sense of responsibility can magnify the impact of intrusive thoughts, even those as extreme as wanting to harm yourself and other people. It just highlights the importance of recognizing the irrational nature of such beliefs and the need to regain control of your thoughts by separating them from your sense of responsibility. All right, my friend, the fifth way that we unknowingly crank up the volume of our intrusive thoughts is through our beliefs about discomfort and anxiety. So many of us view anxiety as being intolerable, and we fear that it'll lead to severe consequences and negative outcomes. And this fear, rather than dissipating on its own, often triggers a range of neutralizing behaviors. Take rituals, for example. These behaviors are embraced as a way to alleviate discomfort and to sidestep the anticipated dire consequences. I want you to picture a father who has two young boys. As a responsible parent, this dad adores his kids and he strives to create a safe environment for them. However, one night, an unexpected fear of someone breaking into their house and harming his children gets implanted in his mind. And it becomes so intolerable that this father unknowingly falls into the cycle of performing rituals to ease his distress. Imagine a typical evening where he's putting his kids to bed. Instead of enjoying the bedtime routine, intrusive thoughts invade his mind, generating anxiety about potential harm coming their way. So, to cope, he checks the locks on the windows and the doors multiple times. He rearranges the toys, and he meticulously inspects the room. Initially, these rituals bring a momentary sense of relief. He believes he's preventing harm and safeguarding his children. However, this fear driven routine becomes a daily must on his to do list, and it overshadows the joy of bedtime stories, and it creates a loop of never ending worry and anxiety. This dad, like so many of us, underestimates his own capacity to handle uncertainties and discomfort without relying on these rituals. The fear of harm inadvertently amplifies distressing thoughts, which traps him in a cycle where the quest for reassurance paradoxically intensifies the very thoughts he aims to dispel. And then in the process, the bedtime routine that was meant to be filled with warmth and connection becomes entangled with anxiety and distress. This is so common. We don't trust our own ability to handle tough situations and to manage uncomfortable emotions. And this underestimation just leads to us living a life in a constant state of discomfort. So, to recap, the 5 research proven ways that we can turn a normal thought into a distressing, intrusive one includes 1, fixating on the controllability of our thoughts, 2, giving too much importance to our thoughts, 3, having an intolerance of uncertainty, 4, having an inflated sense of responsibility for our thoughts. And 5, being afraid to face the discomfort associated with experiencing anxiety. One of the most important things I want you to remember is that whenever you engage with a thought, you're telling your brain that this thought is important and to not forget it. Think of your brain like a network of interconnected pathways. Each time you think a specific thought, that brain pathway gets grooved even deeper. And as you repeatedly engage with that thought, those neural highways become well established, making it easier for your brain to default to thinking that way. So when you tell your brain that a particular thought is important, or when you engage in behaviors that reinforce the significance of the thought, you're essentially widening and deepening those neural grooves. And this in turn gives the thought more power over you because your brain has become wired to prioritize it. It's like your brain is saying, this thought is crucial for survival. Let's make sure we remember it. So, by changing your relationship with your thoughts, you can gradually alter the wiring of your brain. Now, if you're sick and tired of your life being dictated by your thoughts and you want to learn how to break free from them, make sure to check out the next video. Talk soon, my friend. Until then, keep kicking ass and crushing it.